Hello, my name is Steve Sexton. I was born in LA in a hospital called Doctors Hospital, which is no longer there. But the first several years of my life, I don't remember anything, of course, till about 4. And at that point, we lived in an apartment building, me, my mom, and my dad. And I used to see her light an area heater, a gas area heater, by lighting something and then sticking it in and go poof, and then it'd be ready, and the room would get warm. And I remember one morning they were still asleep, and I got up wandering around, and I remember the fascination with that heater. And I took a broom and I stuck it in the heater, and the broom caught on fire. And of course I got scared and dropped the broom, and at that point I'm going, oh, what do I do, what do I do? So I run over and I wake up my mom, and I said, Mom, fire. Anyway, she woke my dad up. By then, the carpet was on fire pretty good. So I was so scared. I remember running and hiding under the kitchen sink. At that time, instead of cabinet doors, they had curtains over the sinks area, and I was in there hiding. And of course, after he got the fire out, he found me. And of course I got a really bad spanking for it. Today I still remember the spanking. And woof, I'll never forget that one. The next thing that happened was 1958. That stands out in my mind. We moved out of an apartment. He had just bought a house in the Canoga Park area. And it's funny, relate that to today, and it's incredible because I think he paid $16,000 for that house, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, ranch-style home, His payments were $135 a month, he told me. And he's thinking, God, how am I going to make these? That's funny. Anyway, so we lived there for quite a while, from the time I was 5 till about 13. But I was always an active kid. Even at 5, I was learning how to do back handsprings, back flips. My dad would do these, throw me back and do flips and this and that. He had a pool put in, so I used to really practice all that stuff on a diving board, a lot of flips and turns and twists, and so I got pretty good at that till I hit about, I want to say, 10 or 11 years old. I remember there was a park not too far from where we lived, and I used to watch these guys swinging on the rings, swinging rings, not still rings like what you see in gymnastics tournaments, but this was more like trapeze type work, only with a lot more tricks, and I was really interested in that stuff. So there was one guy that took a liking to me there, and he started teaching me this stuff, and I became pretty good at that too. And I mean, people from all around would sit around this ring pit and watch everybody do their tricks and stuff. That was a big part of my life at one point. Yeah, I spent a couple years doing that stuff until the next phase was music for me. I got involved with a few guys I know in music, and we started a small band like I think every kid did when he was young. And believe it or not, we were pretty good at that too, singing popular music at the time, which is today is oldies. But, you know, we had a manager and everything. We didn't play gigs or anything because that wasn't the type of music that we did. We did a lot of harmonizing and nothing hard, or which there wasn't too hard of music at the time, but more soft ballad type of stuff, you know, which wasn't real popular at dance clubs and stuff. So. Right about the beginning of this point in time, my parents got divorced. And I didn't mention this yet, but I had a little brother that was 6 years younger than me. Okay, and ended up that he went with my mother and I had to stay with my father, which was something I didn't like at all because he was very strict and very kind of mean. He was raised by a father that used to hit him a lot, you know, and you would think that somebody that was raised that way wouldn't do that with their own kids, but he did. And so I wasn't really too happy living with him at all. So what I did was, from school, I grabbed a couple of friends and we ran away, you know, and we hitchhiked, I think, as far as Bakersfield, something like that, and then ran into a guy who said, "You guys are traveling all wrong, you need to hop trains." So he took us to a train yard and told us how to do it. He says, when it comes up and pulls to a stop, find an open boxcar, jump in. But they have a thing called railroad bulls that go along the cars before they take off, shine lights in there and make sure that there's no bums or anybody in there. And so he said, watch out for them. Don't get caught in there, or you're going to get caught and maybe in trouble. So the only thing inside this railroad car when we jumped in was a railroad tie and an empty cardboard box. Never forget this. So the railroad bull did come by. We hid behind the box when he shined the light in there, and he slammed the door closed. Now it wasn't on, but it also happened to be a refrigerator car, so it was very well insulated, you know, to keep cold in. Not a place you want to be when you're crossing the desert at night and it's freezing, you know. So here we are trying to figure out how we're going to get out of there. And I'll never forget this either. We got so cold that we're all huddled together and we're shivering, and I got the bright idea of lighting the cardboard box on fire. Maybe we can stay warm and like this. Well, so I did, and wrong move. The whole boxcar filled up with smoke, and thank God we were able to get the thing out, but there was still smoky in there. Come the morning, the train stopped and would make frequent stops, actually. And it took all three of us to lift this railroad tie, and every time it would stop, we'd bang on the door with this railroad tie. One of the problems is the people that work on the railroad, most of them are deaf. You know, they're hard of hearing. So it took several stops before somebody noticed it and opened the door. And once the door was open, we all at the same time jumped over his head out and just started running. And we ended up running out into the desert pretty much. There was a town nearby, but you know, that's the direction we were running. Evidently he didn't think anything of it, because shortly later the train left. So we waited for another train to come. When it did, we jumped on, you know how trucks carry cars on different levels and stuff? Well, the trains did the same thing. You know, they had cars here and cars here and cars there. So we saw one pull up, and we found a car that at the time, the wind wing, they don't have those anymore, but the wind wing was open, so we were able to reach our arm in and open the door. And we were on the top level, so we had a nice view and everything. We could turn the radio on because the keys were in the ashtray. And, so we rode in comfort at this point. I think we were in Arizona or something at the time. Anyway, we rode, here again, frequent stops, until finally we saw a town because we were getting pretty hungry. And we jumped off again when we passed this town. Went in and it was cold. And even in the morning, that happened in the morning. We found a little, we didn't have any money. We're 12 years old or something. We walked into a small town store, liquor store type of place, and this friend grabbed some polony and stuck it in his pocket, and this one grabbed a bottle of milk, and I grabbed cookies or something. So now we're okay. And what happened was, I think we were in New Mexico at the time. Yeah, New Mexico or Texas, I don't know. Then we had our stash. We left the place and went back to another train that had just pulled up again, open boxcar. So we're sitting, all three of us in a row, with our legs swinging and eating our food, looking out at the scenery. Well, evidently, somebody had called the local police. Remember, it's a small town. And wasn't more than 20 minutes or so, police car comes pulling up right to us and says, "What are you guys doing?" "Oh, we're just having lunch." "How come you're not in school?" We didn't have an answer. He goes, you guys are funny. He says, "My house was about not far from, I could sit in my kitchen window. I was eating lunch. I could see you guys sitting here eating." So I got a phone call that you guys should be in school and you're out and look like you might be runaways. So anyway, he took us to the police department, threw us in jail, treated us real good though. I mean, he was real. Now, the other two guys wanted to go home, Yeah, here's my dad's phone number and here's this and that, but I wasn't giving it up. I didn't want no part of it, because I didn't want to go home because he wasn't the greatest, to live with. But obviously their parents knew mine, and so he knew. So we were evidently, after the police contacted them, they had made arrangement to fly there. They rented a car from the airport, which was about an hour away. Two of the parents, my dad stayed home. But they got me out. They had his permission to get me out. So we had about an hour-long drive to the airport. At the airport, when we got to the airport, they had to rent a car to come get us. At the airport, they forgot to get the mileage when they were turning in the car. So me and one of the other kids went back to get the mileage. I guess they just trusted us, I don't know what, but they did. And I said, I picked up the keys. I said, "You want to go? You want to take off again?" He goes, "No." And I was thinking about it. I said, well, I guess I can always run away again. So we went back and gave him the mileage, and that was the end of that runaway episode. Well, that wasn't exactly the total end of my running away. I did run away a couple of more times, and I got caught a couple of more times. And because of that, I went to juvenile hall. I remember they put me in there because one time my dad said, "He didn't want me, you keep him." So I was in there for about a week. I think he was trying to teach me a lesson, and then at the end of that week or so, we had a court hearing, and he showed up for the court hearing. This time he kind of fought for my release a little bit, and and I got out in his custody again. So I'm going home and I'm thinking, here we go again. But evidently, I was deemed what you call incorrigible. I wasn't a bad kid, but I just wanted to do what I wanted to do and didn't like the authority of my father. So what ended up happening was eventually they put me in a boys' home that wasn't too far from where I actually lived, maybe 10 miles or so. It was a place called Pacific Lodge Boys Home. And I went in there when I was about, I don't know, 14 or 15, probably 14. Anyway, so it wasn't a place like a prison where there were fences around. It was open. I mean, if you wanted to run away, you could. You know, a lot of boys. You lived in homes, a home that there were several different ones for different age groups of boys. And they were turned in, they had a kitchen and a living room and a fireplace and places to study by your bed, you know, but basically it was a big dorm, you know. So I would be able to, like everybody else there, they put you on a bus and you went to school. The school that I actually went to, which was Canoga Park High School. I was just starting that. So I must have been 15 or 16. So that's where I would go, Canoga Park High School. And afterwards, they were pretty lenient as long as you were good, kept up your grades and stuff. I actually got a job when I was 15 after school in a car wash that was across the street. That I started this job when I was in this boys' home, and of course I asked their permission, can I do this? You know, and then I'll get a ride home from somebody here afterwards. And they said, okay, you know, they were pretty lenient about it. So I started working at a car wash too, you know. So the home was a place where you'd stay, and after a certain length of time, if they felt you were doing good and you were, you know, behaving yourself and everything, they would let you go home for the weekend, you know. And I told them I don't want to go to my dad's, you know. My mom, I'll go visit my mom, but not my dad. So my mom would pick me up, you know, and I'd stay with her for the weekend. Now, I'm still in this band at the time. And they even let us have band practices there sometimes in the gym. We would sit there out in the gym for a couple of hours in the evening if my homework was done and this and that, you know, and practice and get up, go shower and go to bed all over again on the bus to school, to the car wash. This went on for quite a while. And on the weekends, one weekend when I was at home, my mom's, I was with the guys in the garage practicing again, one of their homes. Now, I had met a girl in high school. Her name was Chris, and he met another girl, one of the other guys met another girl that was a friend of hers, so they would be over at band practice too. So on those weekends that I'd be home, we'd get together, go out to the movies, go do this, go do that, you know, just like regular life almost, you know, except for where I had to go sleep. So it wasn't too bad. But one fatal night, we were at a party. We went to a party, a house party. And this girl that I had met, that was my girlfriend at the time, was a year older than me. So there was beer and hard liquor at this party. And she got wasted, you know. So I thought to myself, wow, I better go get her something to drink, like coffee, you know. There was no coffee in the house or anything. So I didn't even have a driver's license at the time, but I jumped in her car. She had a convertible Nova, top was up this night. I'll never forget this. I went looking for a place to get coffee. So I made a left turn onto a street, and coming this way on the street was a cop, which kind of bothered me. I thought, uh-oh, because he was in this lane and I was in this lane. Or no, yeah, I was in this lane. So I'm thinking he's gonna move over behind me and light me up and pull me over. So I kind of panicked and switched lanes. When I did that, I hit his car. Then I panicked. So I stepped on the gas. Here I am, 15 years old, going down Tampa Avenue at 90 miles an hour in her car. And it was raining that night. So I think I went for a matter of 2 miles. And I said, well, I can't outrun these guys or the radio. So I pulled into this gas station, right? You know, the driveway goes up like this, and I just jumped out of the car. I didn't put it in park or anything. And the car rolled back and hit the police car. And I started running, jumped over this fence that was around this gas station. Remember, it's raining. And they're on foot right behind me. And there's barbed wire on top of the fence. So I jumped over the fence, landed in this field, which had tall grass in it, and kind of fell down. And I got back up to start to run. And this one cop was on top of the fence with his billy club in his hand, and he threw it at me and hit me in the head, which knocked me down again. By then he had jumped over. On the way over, he tore his uniform on the barbed wire, which probably really made him mad because they got to pay for those uniforms and things, you know. So he was on top of me going, "You don't run from the city police," you know. Had my arm behind me, and oh my God, I got a whooping that time. So he stood me up, took me out into the front part of the gas station. There must have been 15 cop cars there. You would think Al Capone was being brought out, but no, it was 15-year-old Steve. So they put me in the car, and I did have a wallet with an ID, and they were telling me, "Did you know this kid's only 15?" Because I was kind of big, you know, not much smaller than I am now at that age. Younger looking, of course, but I was a big kid, so they didn't know what they were dealing with. The funny thing about it is that my girlfriend's brother was a cop working the area at the time, and he heard all of this going on over the radio. And he's told me when I saw him, he said, "That's my sister's car. What's going on, you know?" So he actually came to the jail cell that I was in and told me, you know, asked me what was going on. So I told him the truth and everything. He goes, "Okay," you know. And now remember, I'm living at a boys' home at the time. Okay, I'm thinking, oh boy, now where am I going to end up, in San Quentin? I said, they're going to throw the book at me. You know, here I am. I hit, but actually, I spent the weekend in that jail from Friday night till Monday morning, when somebody from the home came to pick me up. Luckily, the home ended up being my saving grace, because no charges were filed on anything, because I was in their custody, their, you know, a ward of the court, and they said, okay, you know, no problem. However, the only thing I got to do was work after school, and after that, there were no more weekends for quite a while. So, and that was one other episode. Yeah, at about 16 and a half, I went to live with my mother after I got out of the home, and which is where I wanted to be in the first place. I was still working at the car wash. She wasn't crazy about the idea, but I quit school. I said, I'm done. After the 11th grade, I said, I'm done. And one of the reasons was because that girlfriend that I told you about, that I still saw her, but she's now out of school. And I'm going to school and I'm going, no, this isn't working for me. So I worked at the car wash full time, 8 hours a day. I actually enjoyed that at the time. And when I was about, I started the martial arts when I was about 19. So I must have been, 19 just turned at the time. And I was at the car wash. And I saw this little Asian man walking in the back door of this 2-story building, convenience center type of place that was right behind the car wash. And he's carrying lumber in and out. And he's a little guy, I say he's maybe 5'4", something like that, small guy. And there's a sign on the back of the door, up above the windows there in the back, that said Hapkido. And I'm thinking to myself, Hapkido, what could that possibly be, Hapkido? Later I found out that the way you pronounce it is Hapkido. But on my lunch hour, I went over there, and I said to him, hi, what you doing here, His English was terrible, so, but he tried hard, and we got to be able to speak to each other and stuff. So he said, yes, you like karate? That's what this is going to be. This is Hapkido karate. I said, oh, and he's struggling all by himself to try and build dressing rooms. And in those days, you would frame out the mat with 2x4s, put in padding, and then lace up, a canvas. It was canvas at the time, a canvas mat around it, And he was, like I said, he was just struggling. So I said to him, if you want, when I get off work, I'll come help you, So I did, and I did this for a couple of days till we got it done, and he told me for my help, he'll give me free lessons for a while. And I said, wow, okay, give it a try. I always liked to box. I used to do that kind of stuff with friends in the neighborhood, we'd put on little boxing gloves and fight each other and stuff, and I always liked that. And he let me know that it's a little bit different, and boy did I find out the difference when I started, So I went to my first class. I started when I was 19, so it was 1972. So I didn't even have a gi yet, so I did it in street clothes. And it was pretty interesting. It was different. One of the first things you learn, or I learned at the time, was how to do basic kicking, the correct form, the way things are done. Also, in most karate systems, you progress through the ranks by learning so many forms between each rank. In the Hapkido system, at least the one I took, you progress through the ranks by learning so many grabbing techniques, joint locks and flipping techniques and things like that. And a lot of those are painful. And one of the things that shocked me was the pain that you receive involved, because he was kind of old school. He's from Korea, Korean guy, and it was kind of no messing around with him. He was pretty strict. In fact, I'd even go over there and watch him after I'd get off work at the car wash, and I'd watch him teaching a kids class, and the kid would be fooling around, and he'd take a bamboo shinai, hit him with it, spank him in the butt with it. And there's parents sitting there, and I kind of said, come here, let me talk to you for a minute, So I took him in his office and I said, this is America, you can't do that. I said, these parents will drag their kids right out of here. I said, you might be able to do that in Korea. You can't do that here, you know. He says, you know, so his next thing was he came up with, instead of the hitting thing, was he had little no weight type of things, and he'd make them go stand in the corner with it over their head, you know, or a book or something like they would in school, and make them stand in the corner for a little while. So that was a good move, you know. So that's what he did. Anyway, as time went on, we became pretty close and good friends, and I was one of the only people that really understood him when he spoke. So I ended up progressing kind of fast and well, and so he asked me, would you like to take private lessons? And I said, yeah. So on my lunch hour from the car wash, I'd come over and take an hour lesson, private, just me and him. And the neat thing about private lessons is worth 20 group lessons, because all the attention is paid to you. This is where he would teach me little things that make things work, and why you do this, and how to get out of it. You know, things that he didn't really teach in a regular class, at least not yet for me, you know. So he saw something in me that he liked and decided he wanted to groom me, you know. So I advanced. By the time I got my black belt, which I think was like 1975 maybe, I was probably better than most black belts at the time, depending on the teacher, of course. You know, everybody's different. You know, every teacher has an idea of what he wants to expect from a black belt. You know, my teacher did too. So in his eyes, I was better than normal. I remember one day on my lunch hour, instead of the private lesson, I walked over there and there was this, you ever seen these stone cold face Japanese guys that look like they'll just kill you if they, you know, if you looked at him wrong? He was a Shirenji Kempo stylist. And my teacher was sitting in the office, and I guess, I don't know if they knew each other or he paid to, you know, to work out there or what, you know. But I had just gotten my black belt not long before that. And I'm watching him work out. Concentration and everything on this guy was incredible. And everything he did, the blocking, his gi snapped. The kicking, his gi snapped. And I'm thinking, this guy's good, you know. But he was a 5th degree black belt in Shirenji Kempo, 5th. And I asked my teacher, because I liked the fighting aspect of things, you know. I liked the fights. You know, all of this stuff is, you know, really good. It serves its purpose, but the kicks and the punches and everything that you learn are useless unless you put them into a, you know, the test, you know. When do you can't create timing without it and stuff like that. So I asked my teacher, I went in the office, I said, do you think it would be disrespectful if I asked him to spar? And he said, no. He said, just do it right. Bow, make sure that he knows that you're not challenging him or anything, that, you know. I said, really, because I thought I'd probably learn something, you know, from this guy. So I did, you know. During one of his breaks, I walked up to him, bowed, and I asked him, sir, you know, do you think maybe we could spar a little bit when you're finished? He goes, okay. So I said, thank you, you know. So I went back and I said yes to my teacher, and he said yes. So he goes, wait till I'm done. When I'm finished, we will. So I'm in the office with my teacher, and I'm going, hey, what did I get myself into? You know, and I'm going, you know, I said, I'm going to get my ass kicked here. So my teacher says, don't worry about what he knows. Think about what you know. Be confident in your own stuff. Forget about being intimidated by anything you see. I said, okay. And that made a lot of sense, and that's exactly what I did. Because when he was done, he said he was ready. And we went out there, bowed, and went after it. This guy could not hit me at all with anything. And I swept him, I don't know how many times. I punched him, I don't know how many times. At the end of the whole thing, I don't think he laid a glove on me or a kick more than 1 or 2 times through the whole thing. This is one of the moments in martial arts when you walk out of the school on cloud 9 and you think, this is paying off. This is all this hard work is working out. Either this guy's a really lousy 5th degree black belt or I'm a very good 1st degree black belt, because it shouldn't work this way, you know. So yeah, that was an exciting day for me. I'll never forget that day. Okay, so shortly after that incident with the Shorenji Kempo guy, I learned a bit more from my teacher, and then he brought me an offer to buy the place from him. And I thought, wow, that'd be great. I didn't have the money he wanted, so I had to get a partner. And that's what we did. We both put the money in, and he ended up going to Virginia, the whole other side of the United States. Ended up teaching back there, but would come out here, you know, once or twice a year, in which time we would get together and he'd teach me and all those things that I still wanted to learn, you know. Anyway, so here I am now running the school myself. And it was during a kids class, I remember, all the little kids. And all the mothers are sitting around the mat watching their kids. When this guy and a girl walk in the front door. Not a big particular guy, maybe 5'7", pretty well built, but had an attitude, you know. And basically called me over to him, so I walked over to him, and he made it clear that he came to spar with me. He wanted to fight, you know. I don't know if he was trying to show off for his girlfriend or, you know what. I had no idea. I said, I'm busy teaching right now. I said, why don't you come back another time? And I tried to walk away, and he got really indignant, insistent, and so finally I said, okay, I told the kids, all you kids back up against the wall, back up against the wall. And so they all backed up against the wall, and I said, take your shoes off and come on out here. So he walked out, and I said, let's do it, right? So we're moving around and we're moving around. I wanted to see what this guy had. I had no idea if he was a martial artist or what. He wasn't. He was just a street fighter. But everything he tried to do, I didn't let this go too long, but I wanted to see what he had. So he basically started trying to punch. So he'd throw something and you could just hear him grunt, like he was trying to really knock my head off, you know. And I moved around a little bit, and the only one thing that I did was a spinning heel kick. When he was set up right, that's the first thing I did, was throw the spinning heel kick, hit him right here on the head. No, I hit him in the jaw. I hit him right in the jaw. He went down, fell down unconscious, and there was blood coming out of his mouth, like this. And there was a dead silence. All the mothers are like, and all the kids were dead silence until one kid says, you could hear this kid say, did you see that? I think Steve killed him. Yeah, so it was funny, and it wasn't really funny at the time, but thinking back on it, it was funny, you know. So he's laying there, and he's unconscious, so he's harmless. So I couldn't remember who was upstairs. I thought there might have been a doctor upstairs or something. So I went upstairs to try and see if there was a doctor there, but it was late and everybody was gone, you know, because it was after 5. And I came back. By the time I came back, after knocking on a few doors, he had gotten up and his girlfriend took him out, you know. So, of course, that was the talk of the evening with the I thought, this is great. I'm gonna lose all my kids. All the parents are gonna go, you know. But the nice thing about it was, because this guy tried to sue me afterwards, you know, I got letters from some of the mothers, even kids, because I got a letter from an attorney saying that they were suing me because what happened when I hit him was I broke his jaw. He had to have his mouth wired shut for 6 weeks. And with the letters from these parents, I made copies of them and sent it to the attorney. Case was dropped. And I did run into this guy one other time later. He said to me, "Do you remember me?" I said, "Yeah, I remember you." I said, "I always wondered what it was like to have your jaws wired shut." I said, "What do you do when you got to throw up?" You know, he looked at me and just turned and walked away. He didn't. And that was a funny story too. I stayed at the school a while longer, but back in the early 80s, we were in a recession, much like today, only a little worse at the time. Back in the early 80s, maybe 1980. Can't remember the exact year. Anyway, when you're in a recession, the first thing that people do without are the luxuries in life, like karate lessons, you know, or going to the movies, or going out to dinner. You know, they try and save wherever they can save. And I was thinking, this isn't working out. And I didn't know whether to close the school or sell it or what. Anyway, I was talking to a student of mine named Fariborz Aja. Today, this is what's funny, is today he's a very well-known guy, you know, and one of the nicest guys in the world. He was a student of mine, and at the time, I told him my predicament, and he wanted to buy it. So I said, okay, let's do it. Now, I didn't just up and leave and have nowhere to go. I've got to tell you another story, because this is an area where I spend the next 15 years or so. So after work, after the school closed and stuff, I oftentimes would go to a particular bar and have a couple beers and then go home, start the whole day over. But this bar that I walked into was a rough place. A lot of it was in an area that was kind of questionable. So there was kind of a rough crowd there. So when I walked in, this guy who I found out was the owner afterwards was being taunted by like 3 guys, and then it got physical. So I went over and got involved and ended it and fixed the problem for him. You know, those 3 left, and you know, he took me in the office and said, "Geez, thanks a lot. You know, it was really nice and everything." So he had to leave, but he said, "I'm going to want to talk to you. Can you come back tomorrow?" I said, "Yeah, I'll be back tomorrow." So the next night I came in, and as it worked out, he was an absentee owner. He owned the place, but he didn't have the correct type of help to take care of these situations that oftentimes came up. So he made me an offer of giving me a percentage of the business to run it for him, every aspect, from the banking, hiring and firing, and you name it. And so I said, okay. Timing couldn't be better. I'm not thrilled with the money at school anymore, and let's do it. So I told Fireboards, we're on. He took over the school, and I got involved in the bar business. Okay, one of the first incidences that happened in this particular club was there was this guy that came in, big guy, probably 6'4", built, huge arms, huge chest. I mean, the guy was really built, but he was a jerk. So I never mentioned that through the course of my teaching, I used to teach a lot of the West Valley Police Department. And I would teach these cops for free back when I had the school. So they kind of followed me. So when I ended up moving from the karate school and getting into this line of work, those who worked the particular area would stop by and see me at night once in a while, walk in and say hi, Even on their off time, they would come in. So I was sitting there talking to, there were 3 off-duty cops sitting there in a row, and I'm talking to these guys. While this big guy I was talking about was in here, what this guy would do is he'd walk right up to guys in their face and flex his arm like this. I mean, he had an arm, but people would be like, what's the matter with you? And he made his rounds around the bar, kind of being intimidating to people until he got to me. And he finally, and this is what set it off. At the time, I was kind of big myself, not his big kind of big, but I was a lot bigger than I am now. And I was wearing a Gold's Gym t-shirt, at the time. And he comes up to me and he says, is that supposed to scare me? I said, get out of here. I said, it's not supposed to scare anybody. I said, but I'm kind of busy talking to my 3 friends here. I said, so why don't you run along and go talk to somebody else? So he turned around and walked away, and it must have pissed him off, because he came back in about a minute, and he goes, why don't you and I go outside and we can talk ourselves? I said, we don't have to go outside. And I went, bam, and I hit him right about here, okay? And I'll never forget this. He went the length of the pool table, landed on his back, and it broke his nose because he was bleeding like a sieve, And the 3 cops are sitting there, right? While I did that, all of them know me. And I ran over to him, and I'll never forget this. I ran over to him and I knelt down and I twisted his head so his ear was on top. And I remember saying to him, when I let you go, I want you to get up and head for the door. If you even look back at me, I'm going to break both your legs. So I threw his head down, kicked him in the butt, and he got up and left. But a friend, one of the customers, saw him outside talking on the phone about guns. So he came in and let us know. Now remember, there's 3 off-duty cops in there, so they didn't want to leave just now. And not more than a couple of minutes later, 10, 12 armed LAPD cops come walking in the door with their guns drawn. So what it ended up being was, he told the cops on the phone that I pistol whipped him. That's what he said. And that's why when I was talking to you earlier, I said, "Why, you only hit him once?" the police couldn't believe that he was only hit once because his nose was so broken and bloody and everything. Anyway, this all ended. The cops told him to leave and never come back. Thank God the cops that I knew were there to back me up and told what really happened. So everything worked out great. I'm sitting in my office. About an hour later, bartender tells me there's a woman here that wants to see me. I said, send her in. So she walks into the door. She's standing at the door, and I get up to meet her. And she says, are you the guy that beat up the guy earlier? And I said, yeah, why? She said, I want to thank you so much. He's my husband. And all he does is go from bar to bar terrorizing the places and beating people up. Nobody's ever stood up to him before like that. So she said he deserved everything he got. Probably about, I don't know, I was there for about 15 years. And there probably was at least 200 incidences like this one. A lot of them, how I'm still alive today, I have no idea. I should be dead by all rights, between guns and hatchets and knives and broken bottles and everything else that I've dealt with. So, thanks to the martial arts and a little bit of luck, I've gotten through it. And no matter what style of martial arts you take, you're going to be doing well for yourself because something is better than nothing. And it just might save your life someday. When I turned 60, I wrote a biography with a lot more detail in the small synopsis that you guys just got. But you can get it on Amazon. This is the book. It's called The Legend of Steve Roadhouse Sexton. You can look it up. Thank you, guys.
Perfect. That's it.
We're good?
We're great.
All
Thank
right.
you, sir.
Well done.
Well done.